When I was young in the 1970s, I used IV drugs for a while, and I got very sick at one point during that period and was told that it was some kind of hepatitis, but they didn't know what it was. And I recovered from that sickness and never thought any more of it. And it was only much later on in my life, when I was being tested for something else, that the hospital picked up that I actually had hepatitis C and that my liver was damaged. And this was a huge shock to me. I had no idea. I'd been sick with hepatitis all this time. I had 5 children. I was bringing up children. I was very active in the unemployed and beneficiaries movement. And to suddenly realise that I had cirrhosis of the liver, that I was always going to have to be surveilled for liver cancer, and the prognosis wasn't necessarily great, was such a shock. I didn't tell anybody except my husband. I kept it totally secret. I went to Parliament as a Green Member of Parliament in 1999. Very early on in my time in Parliament in the early 2000s, Ed finally accepted me into a treatment program which had a terrible effect on me. I became very depressed but also very physically sick, and was taking an enormous amount of drugs just to try and get by. And I was working at the same time, working 12, 14-hour days at Parliament, travelling all the time. Very intense life as a Member of Parliament, which I took very seriously. So it was probably the hardest 6 months of my life in some ways. At the end of 6 months, the test came back and said that it had done nothing. So I'd been through all that for nothing. So that was, again, a big shock, very depressing moment, and with no treatment in sight for the indefinite future. It wasn't until a few years back that I became eligible for one of the new drug trials with the antivirals. Went through that, and in 12 weeks was cleared from the virus. I think there's huge stigma around Hep C, and a lot of that, of course, comes from the fact of the stigma that people who've been junkies or been IV drug users or still are, and I certainly felt it. I didn't come out at all in public as someone who had used drugs in that way until very recently, for a lot of reasons, but fear around legal ramifications in terms of police and legal things, around employment opportunities, around, and in my case, political, the fear that I was very vulnerable to blackmail, and the fear that I would not be accepted in the political arena as someone with this kind of background. I felt very fortunate that the Green Party accepted me, but at the same time they didn't know. I didn't disclose my background when I applied to be a candidate for the Green Party, and I was later told that if I had told my true story, I probably would not have been accepted as a candidate. I still fear negative impacts in some situations of people knowing this about me. But it's so important that some of us have the courage to speak out and say, actually, whether we're a Member of Parliament, whether we're an unemployed 18-year-old in Kaitaia, whether we're a mum in Christchurch, whoever we are, whatever is the cause of Hep C or the possibility we might have Hep C, we've got to get past that. For some of us, it's facing up to things in our life that we might want to forget. We might want to think never happened, and we've moved on. But actually this virus, it doesn't care what's in our mind. The virus is in our body and our liver, and it's still affecting our liver, and it can in the end kill us. So it's worth taking that first step, even though I know how hard it is. It's been hard for me. I know it'll be hard for you, but you can do it. The knowledge that now you can go and have a simple test, and if you do have Hep C, have a simple treatment that is not invasive, is not difficult, does not have this terrible side effects that so many of us did go through in the past, makes it so easy now, and thank goodness we live in a country where this is possible. It's simple and easy, and I just hope that everyone who might have Hep C for any reason, whether it's IV drug use or for any other reason at all, that now's the time to go and have that test, and now's the time you can get treatment. It doesn't do any harm, a test doesn't hurt you. Maybe you don't have it, but if you do, this is a chance that can change your life.
Thanks, Sue, for sharing your story with us. Sue received treatment under the old treatment regime. That didn't work for her, and she was part of one of the early trials for the new drugs. Don't forget, new treatments are available. They don't take as long, there's few side effects, and highly successful. Get tested now. Know it, treat it, beat it.